In 1976, a Soviet pilot defected to Japan in a MiG-25. When NATO engineers tore it apart, what they found rewrote every threat assessment in the West. Not because it was better than they expected, but because it was different in ways they hadn't even imagined. That's what this video is about. 5 fighter jets that weren't just advanced for their time, but also operating in a category their competitors couldn't even see. Some of them are already legends. You find out what made each of these jets untouchable, the specific engineering decisions, the tactical breakthroughs, and the uncomfortable truth. Number 1. SR-71 Blackbird. Here's a number that never gets old: 3,530 miles per hour. That's the SR-71's top speed, Mach 3.3 at altitude. To put that in perspective, a rifle bullet travels around 1,700 miles per hour. The Blackbird was flying twice that speed, and it did it routinely on reconnaissance missions over denied territory for over 3 decades. Lockheed's Keaton's Skunk Works division built the SR-71 in the early 1960s under Kelly Johnson, the same engineer behind the U-2. The design problem they faced was almost absurd at Mach 3+. The skin of the aircraft heats to over 600 degrees Fahrenheit from air friction alone. Aluminum melts. So they built it out of titanium, which was, at the time, almost entirely controlled by the Soviet Union. The CIA ran covert operations to buy it on the open market, the US, and built its fastest spy plane out of Soviet titanium. The Blackbird's Pratt & Whitney J58 engines are themselves a masterpiece of engineering. At low speeds, they function like conventional afterburning turbojets. Above Mach 2.2, they partially convert into ramjets, literally changing their operating principle mid-flight. That kind of adaptive propulsion wasn't seen again until decades later. In over 24 years of operational service with the USAF, no SR-71 was ever shot down by enemy fire. Not one. And over 4,000 missiles were fired at Blackbirds during their operational career. The standard evasion tactic was simply to accelerate. Pilots received missile launch warnings and pushed the throttle. The missiles couldn't catch them. The jet was retired in 1998, primarily due to cost. Each flight hour ran approximately $200,000 in today's terms, and because satellites could do much of the same reconnaissance work. But the decision remains controversial. These satellites follow predictable orbits. The Blackbird could be over a target in hours, unannounced. No country has since built an aircraft with comparable speed and range combination. The SR-71 didn't just outpace the competition, it made the competition irrelevant. Before we move to jet number 2, drop a comment. Could a modernized SR-71 survive today's air defense networks? We're talking S-400 systems, advanced radar. Make your case below. Would number 2, MiG-25 Foxbat. When NATO first spotted the MiG-25 in reconnaissance photos during the mid-1960s, the reaction was near panic. The aircraft had massive engines, enormous wings, and could reportedly hit Mach 3.2. Western analysts assumed it was a highly maneuverable air superiority fighter. In response, the US accelerated development of the F-15. The Foxbat, in a very real sense, created the Eagle. Then Viktor Belenko landed his MiG-25 in Hakodate, Sachi, Japan in September 1976, and the story changed completely. Japanese and American engineers spent 6 weeks taking that aircraft apart. What they found was simultaneously impressive and clarifying. The airframe was built largely from welded steel, not titanium, not advanced composites, steel. It was heavy, it was crude by Western standards, and it had vacuum tubes in its avionics rather than transistors. But they had also fundamentally misunderstood the design intent. The MiG-25 was never built to dogfight. It was built to intercept, specifically to chase down high-altitude, high-speed threats like the SR-71 and the B-70 Valkyrie. For that mission, it was extraordinary. It could hit Mach 2.83 in sustained flight, and Mach 3.2 in emergency dashes, at which point the engines were essentially destroyed afterward. The aircraft's turning radius at top speed was measured in dozens of miles. In the right mission profile, though, the MiG-25 was lethal. During the 1991 Gulf War, a Foxbat fired a radar-guided missile that destroyed an F/A-18 Hornet piloted by Lieutenant Commander Michael Scott Speaker, the first American combat casualty of that war. It then escaped before U.S. aircraft could respond. The Foxbat's legacy is actually a lesson in intelligence analysis. NATO's misreading of its capabilities triggered a generation of fighter development. The MiG-25 didn't win any air battles by being the best dogfighter. It won strategically by forcing its adversary to build a better plane. Here's something worth thinking about. What other modern aircraft might we be misreading right now? Drop your thoughts. China's J-20 gets a lot of attention, but is the West analyzing it accurately or making the same mistake they made with the Foxbat? Number 3. F-22 Raptor. The F-22 Raptor entered service with the USAF in December 2005, and nearly 2 decades later, no country has built a dedicated air superiority fighter that clearly beats it. That's not marketing. That's the consensus of the analysts who've studied the unclassified performance data. What makes the Raptor so difficult to counter starts with supercruise, the ability to exceed Mach 1 without afterburner. Most fighters need to burn afterburner to go supersonic, which drains fuel and lights up infrared sensors. The F-22 cruises at Mach 1.5 on dry thrust alone. It's already supersonic before the enemy radar even has a solid track. Add to that an all-aspect stealth profile that reduces its radar cross-section to approximately the size of a steel marble, roughly 0.0001 square meters, according to some published estimates. And you have a fighter that can fire first, from beyond visual range, before the opposing pilot even knows he's being engaged. In U.S. Air Force exercises, F-22s have posted kill-to-loss ratios against fourth-generation opponents that would be considered unrealistic in any Hollywood film. But here's the problem that keeps defense planners awake. Congress terminated the F-22 program at 187 operational aircraft in 2009. Cost was the stated reason. Each airframe ran approximately $150 million in flyaway terms. The deeper reason was a post-Cold War assumption that peer air combat was no longer the primary threat. Then that assumption looks very different today. China is operating over 200 J-25th generation fighters. Russia has the Su-57. The F-22 production line has been cold for over a decade, and restarting it would cost billions before a single new jet rolled out. The Raptor didn't just raise the ceiling for air superiority, it defined a ceiling that nobody else has reached, and America built fewer than 200 of them. Here's the question worth arguing about. With China now fielding hundreds of J-20s, should the US have kept the F-22 line open? Drop your take below and tell us whether you think 187 jets is enough for a Pacific conflict. Number 4. F-35 Lightning II. The F-35 Lightning II is the most expensive weapons program in human history. Development costs alone have exceeded $400 billion. The lifetime program cost, acquisition, operations, sustainment across all variants is projected to surpass $1.7 trillion. Those numbers invite criticism, but they also reflect something important. The F-35 was never just a fighter. It was a complete reimagining of what a combat aircraft is supposed to do. Lockheed Martin built the F-35 under the Joint Strike Fighter program to replace multiple legacy aircraft simultaneously: the F-16, the F/A-18, the AV-8B Harrier, across the Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps, and to do it in a package that over 17 allied nations could also operate. That interoperability is itself a strategic weapon. When your allies fly the same jet, your combined sensor networks merge. Your targeting data flows between cockpits. Your coalition fights as one integrated force rather than a collection of disconnected national air arms. The F-35's defining advantage isn't speed. It isn't even stealth, though its radar cross-section is comparable to a metal golf ball. It's sensor fusion. The AN/APG-81 AESA radar, combined with the distributed aperture system, 6 infrared cameras mounted around the fuselage, that gives the pilot a full 360-degree picture projected directly into the helmet. F-35 pilots don't look through their visor, they look through the aircraft. That information advantage means an F-35 pilot typically knows where the threat is and fires before the opposing pilot has a targeting solution at all. Critics point to sustained maintenance challenges, software development delays, and a flight hour cost exceeding $36,000. Those are legitimate concerns. But in exercise after exercise, F-35s have defeated F-15 and F-16 at lopsided exchange ratios. The information edge is real, and it's widening. Now here's the debate that's been running since the program began. Is the F-35 a masterpiece or an overpriced compromise? Has it solved the right problem or optimized for the wrong war? And comment your verdict. Number 5. B-21 Raider. The B-21 Raider had its first public flight in November in 2023. We know remarkably little about it. That is entirely intentional, and that tells you something. Northrop Grumman developed the B-21 under a contract awarded in 2015 to replace the aging B-2 Spirit fleet. The Air Force has stated plans to acquire at least 100 aircraft, likely more, at a unit cost reportedly around $700 million per plane. Those numbers are almost certainly incomplete. The program has significant classified funding streams. What we know about the B-21's capabilities starts with its stealth profile. The B-2 Spirit had a radar cross-section roughly equivalent to a large bird. Analysts believe the B-21 achieves meaningfully lower observability still, incorporating design advances and materials developed over the past 25 years that were not available when the B-2 was built in the 1980s. The B-21 is designed from the ground up to operate in contested airspace against integrated air defense systems that have been specifically engineered to defeat the B-2. Russia's S-500 and China's HQ-9B represent a new tier of air defense capability. The B-21 is built to fly through them. Beyond stealth, the B-21 is designed for optionally crewed operations. That means it is being built with the infrastructure to operate as an unmanned platform, either remotely piloted or potentially autonomous, thus in future configurations. This isn't speculation, it's in the Air Force's published requirements. The B-21 also reportedly serves as a node in a networked strike architecture, meaning it can coordinate with other platforms, potentially directing unmanned wingmen or passing targeting data in real time. This makes it not just a bomber, but a command element in a distributed strike network. What makes the B-21 so far ahead of its time isn't any one capability. It's the integration of reduced observability, long-range precision strike, and network connectivity in a single platform designed to survive against the best air defenses on Earth. No other nation has demonstrated anything close. So, what makes a jet ahead of its time? Looking at these 5 aircraft, the answer isn't the fastest speed, the lowest radar return, or the biggest weapons load. It's this. A jet is ahead of its time when it solves a problem the enemy doesn't know how to counter yet. Here's what you need to remember going forward. First, technological superiority isn't permanent. The SR-71 was retired not because it was beaten, but because the threat environment evolved around it. Every jet on this list will eventually face that same reality. Second, quantity and quality are in permanent tension. 187 F-22s is a number that concerns serious defense analysts. Advanced capabilities mean nothing if you run out of airframes in the opening week of a high-intensity conflict. Third, On the Next Leap won't look like any of these jets. Autonomous systems, directed energy, hypersonic missiles launched from stealth platforms. The aircraft that earns a place on this list in 2040 may not have a pilot seat at all. In your opinion, which of these 5 jets had the greatest strategic impact? Not just technical achievement, but real-world influence on how war is fought. Make your argument in the comments.